There are different types of prodigies in modern football, those with great talent and potential, and those who are touted as the next Maradona, Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo from a very young age. Well, the protagonist of today's video has already been described as the next Pele by none other than Pele himself. The first time he touched the ball right in front of me, I got goosebumps. I almost cried. He reminded me of myself when I was his age. Yes, this is the highest of praises you can receive if you want to become a professional footballer, but something has broken on Robinho's path to greatness. And today we're going to explore his rather interesting life, a life that could be the subject of a fascinating novel. His problems, his controversies, his ups and downs.
Robinho! Wonderful!
Robinho was born on the Brazilian region of São Vicente in January 1984. It won't come as a surprise to anyone to learn that his childhood was very difficult, even miserable, something that is common to most Brazilian superstars. He grew up in a working-class family, and despite the financial challenges, his extraordinary talent with the ball was evident from an early age. As you may know, the south of Brazil is better known as the region that produces the most homegrown footballing talent than the centre or north. Yes, this may just be a coincidence, but there also may be a simple explanation. On the one hand, young Brazilian children in the south are traditionally poorer and find a common passion with their friends, football. On the other hand, the football culture as a whole is more developed in the south. And it is no wonder that Brazil's biggest clubs, such as Santos, Sao Paulo, Palmeiras and others, are based there. If you're still wondering if there's an exception, of course there is. Rivaldo is one of the few legendary footballers not born in the south. And if you want to know more about his fascinating story, click on our video in the channel. You can find the link in the description. Also, we invite you to subscribe for more similar documentaries. As we said, Robinho had a passion for the ball that was unparalleled, playing every day on the streets and beaches. But on the other hand, he had one support that perhaps millions of others didn't have: his parents. Seeing his skill and passion for the game, his family supported his interests, understanding that it could indeed lead to a better future. His mother took the first step towards getting Robinho involved in sport by enrolling him in a form of indoor football called futsal. And, well, because of his mother's gesture, he forged a strong bond with her for the trust she placed in him. During the futsal training sessions, Robinho's agility, dribbling and goal-scoring skills really stood out, and he quickly rose through the ranks. As you may know, futsal is played in a very fast-paced environment, requiring quick reflexes and close control of the ball, something Robinho naturally possessed in his skill set. Then, at the age of 12, Robinho was scouted by Santos FC, then one of the Brazilian league's sleeping giants. Yes, Santos had a rich history, but they hadn't won a league since the 1960s, when Pele was still part of the team. But what impressed Robinho and his parents most was not Santos' reputation as a historically strong team. Yes, that was good, but they had something the other clubs didn't. Santos FC was the club with the best academy for young talent in Brazil. His parents knew that he would develop in a good environment, where the club would do everything possible to make him grow. The only other ingredient needed to make Robinho a superstar was a hunger for perfection and determination, which was already deeply ingrained in Robinho's mind. So, to put it simply, Robinho had the whole formula to become one of the very best, and he actually did it. Almost. As mentioned at the beginning, it's also interesting to note that the moment of recognition from the great Pele, who once attended a Santos training session during Robinho's time with the team, and was already captivated by the youngster, his dribbling was devastating, as was the simplicity with which he controlled the ball. He reminded me of myself at that age. And then, after 6 full years in the academy, between the ages of 12 and 18, Robinho made his senior debut in 2002. He made 24 appearances and scored 1 goal at Santos, won the Brazilian Serie A for the first time in 38 years. Yes, the same amount of time that had elapsed since Pele's last league title in 1964. Robinho's contribution wasn't huge, but he was growing into the men's team. What happened 2 years later, however, would take the whole of Brazil by surprise. In the final of the 2002 Campeonato Brasileiro, with a skill that can't be captured in statistics, he made a series of stepovers that led to a penalty for Santos. Speaking of stepovers, well, we know plenty of superstars for whom this move has been their main weapon. Cristiano Ronaldo, Ronaldo Nazario, even 2002 World Cup winner Denilson. But it is Robinho who is the true step-over king. He could perform dozens and dozens with such speed and grace that his opponents simply couldn't figure out what he was going to do next. This move became his trademark. 2 years later, in 2004, when Santos won the league again, Robinho was already the next big thing of Brazilian football. He had established himself as a key figure in the team, taken on the responsibility of being Santos' true leader. He played a total of 2,600 minutes in 37 games that season, scoring 21 goals. The footballing world was already crazy about him, with most of Europe's top teams willing to pay top dollar for his services. Leading the pack, as usual, was Real Madrid. His €24 million move to the Santiago Bernabeu marked a significant milestone in his career and was one of the most high-profile moves of the era, especially when we are talking about a player from the Brazilian league. The Galacticos era in Madrid was already drawing to a close, but the names of Ronaldo, Beckham, Zidane, Roberto Carlos and Raul were still very much present. Indeed, it was already clear that each of them was not in the same form as in 2002, for example, when Madrid won the Champions League. And this was the perfect opportunity for Robinho to shine on the European stage. He wore not just any number, but the number 10 shirt that Figo had donned a few weeks before. Yes, the Portuguese legend had moved to Inter in the same transfer window, and Robinho was his replacement. Robinho arrived at the Santiago Bernabeu with high expectations, and he made an impact in his very first game, coming on as a substitute in a 1-1 draw with Cadiz. He changed the game completely, playing all over the attacking line and playing a big part in Raul's 2-1 goal. However, looking at his time with Los Blancos as a whole, it was a mixed bag. He initially flourished under coach Vanderlei Luxemburgo, a fellow Brazilian, but the managerial instability that plagued Madrid at the time severely affected his consistency. With Luxemburgo's departure and the subsequent managerial changes, Robinho's role in the team fluctuated. The new in-charge Fabio Capello, a typical Italian coach, favoured a more disciplined and defensive approach, which meant Robinho often had to wait for his chances on the bench. Despite these challenges, Robinho made a significant contribution during his tenure. He helped Real Madrid win back-to-back La Liga titles in 2007 and 2008. His performances were often brilliant, but he struggled to maintain consistency amid high expectations and fierce competition for places in the team. In the 3 seasons between 2005 and 2008, Robinho contributed 35 goals and 27 assists in 136 appearances for Madrid. Yes, even though he only stayed at the Bernabeu for 3 seasons, it's all very impressive for a man who didn't reach his potential. And finally, if we look at things realistically, between 2005 and 2008, Robinho had much better stats than Vinicius in his first 3 seasons. This, of course, is further proof that no matter how talented you are, football is still largely about timing and luck. Then, at the end of the 2008-09 summer transfer window, amid rumours of a move to Chelsea, Robinho made a surprise switch to Manchester City on deadline day for a then British record fee of £32.5 million. The move sparked the start of a new era for Manchester City under the ownership of Sheikh Mansour, with Robinho their first major signing, interestingly enough, on the first day of the United Group takeover. As far as his performances were concerned, Robinho started strongly for the citizens, just as he had done in Madrid, scoring 14 goals in his debut season in the Premier League. However, his time at City was also marred by inconsistency, off-field issues and, most importantly, injury. It was during this spell that Robinho began to suffer serious injuries that would haunt him for the rest of his career. In 2009, he missed almost half the season with an ankle injury, unable to play in 18 games. He also reportedly had major issues with the club's management, particularly the coach Mark Hughes, who didn't allow him to play his full potential. As a result, he was sent out on loan to Santos for a second spell, where he went on to achieve something historic with his boyhood club, winning their first ever Brazilian Cup. Yes, you heard that right. Santos had never won the trophy without Robinho, who scored 2 goals in 5 games on path to glory. In the second half of the 2009-10 season, he also crossed paths with an up-and-coming 18-year-old talent called Neymar. After that, AC Milan decided to give Robinho a chance and bought him for €18 million. And just like in Madrid and City, it happened again. He started his career fabulously, scoring 21 goals in his debut campaign and had a major role in the Rossoneri's first Serie A title in 7 years, winning the Scudetto in 2010-11. From there, however, Robinho's injury troubles began again. During a friendly against Al Ahly in 2011, the Brazilian suffered a bizarre but painful injury when he hit the camera on the side of the touchline. Yes, Robinho was looking at the ball in the air and trying to get it before it went out of play. He was chasing it, but just a second later, he hit his knee right on the camera, which was positioned about 4 to 5 meters away from the pitch. And although on paper that moment did not lead to an injury, the fact is that Robinho was subsequently sidelined for a number of spells with knee problems. In total, he missed 35 games for Milan between 2011 and 2014, when the Rossoneri decided to loan the Brazilian out at the age of 30, unable to hold down a regular starting berth in a team with Mario Balotelli, Ricardo Kaká, and Adel Tarabat. He was back in what he called a safe haven, the place where he had always felt most comfortable, Santos FC. But well into his 30s, Robinho and probably many of his fans knew he was unlikely to achieve the dream of becoming the next Pelé. But if you look at his story in a different light, the great Pelé spent most of his career playing for one club, Santos. And from that point of view, Robinho was perhaps the player who came closest to the great Brazilian, even ahead of club legend like Neymar. So in some degree, Robinho was still kind of being the next Pelé. However, the end of his career was marred by something horrific. He was convicted of a sexual assault and a gang rape in 2017, with the 9-year prison sentence starting officially from 2020. After all he had achieved, after all the talent Robinho had at his disposal, it was perhaps the saddest end to his good career. Yes, he would be out of jail in 5 years, but at what cost? With a reputation completely different to the one football had gifted him. In many ways, his story also resembles that of Dani Alves, though Barcelona's great right-back never spent his entire sentence after his bail was paid. If you enjoyed Robinho's story, you can go straight to those of other great Brazilians like Roberto Carlos and Rivaldo. Also, support us by clicking on the subscribe button so you never miss anything from us. Catch you in the next one and see you on the pitch.